And good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are listening to the podcast from here in the Philippines and from all over the world. And welcome to my podcast, the RJ Ledesma Podcast. In this podcast, I like to interview the country's pioneering business personalities and trailblazing entrepreneurs to learn more about how they think about doing business. What are their success secrets? Can we use those same success secrets in our businesses? How have they innovated, pivoted, evolved their business during the pandemic times? And more importantly, what are the new emerging business opportunities they see in the new normal scenario? Now, is there a business personality or entrepreneur rather that you would like me to interview here on the podcast? Please let me know. I would love to learn from them. Just drop me a message. Right now, we are also live on Kumu and on YouTube tonight. Very excited to have you right now, the co-founder and CEO of DragonFi Securities. They just launched their stock trading platform last May 8th. I'll be having on the show Jon Carlo Lim of DragonFi. DragonFi targets to harness the power of the internet in a financial service context through DragonFi Securities. DragonFi is revolutionizing the investment landscape of the Philippines by developing best-in-class web and mobile stock trading options. They are set to broaden the Filipinos' participation in the capital markets by providing advanced technology and tools for innovative stock market products. Now, they said their stretch goal is actually to produce a 100 billion value turnover in the first 24 months. It's very easy to open up an account here. It just takes you 30 minutes to open up a DragonFi account, and investors can open up an account with a minimum deposit requirement of 25,000 pesos. Let's find out more about DragonFi. Please welcome on my show, Mr. Jon Carlo Lim. Jon, welcome to the show.
Hey, RJ, thanks for having me. I've always enjoyed your podcast. I feel that you guys give an in-depth, look into the entrepreneurial process.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. This show is always quite a struggle to produce and to make, but to hear you saying that one, for me, it's so encouraging for me to hear that, and also to the people listening to the show. And now, Jon, before everything else, wow, you just launched May 8th, and we're a couple of weeks into May. How does it feel to have your platform up and running after several months, even years of having to put this all together?
Yeah, it was really a long road to get here. The regulatory hurdle was pretty steep, and we really wanted to come out with a best in class platform, which is not easy to do. So yeah, we're pretty excited. We're excited to share this with the retail investing public, and happy to be here.
Great. Now, in a nutshell, I know it's going to be very hard to explain DragonFi, but what was the, again, we say, what was the elevator pitch? What was that, like the 30-second to 1 minute pitch that you gave to explain what DragonFi was all about?
So my co-founders and I, we really saw the white space brought about by the technological backwardness of the brokerage space at large in the country. How is it possible that the trading platforms that I use to trade the U.S. equity markets in 2002 are better than any of the trading platforms available today locally? So we took the uncompromising route of acquiring and customizing the best technology and customizing it for the Philippine use case. We share the same technology as some of the largest brokerages in the US, making it really purpose built for the most demanding markets in the world. So I think for the first time in the Philippines, we finally have a trading platform that can really stand toe to toe with the best in the world.
Got that. In fact, I was reading articles from Mercado Mercada and from Bloomberg who were commenting, and I hope you don't mind blowing your own horn, but what was their feedback when it came to using initially the DragonFi platform? And before that, Zeke, my producer, can you please flash the DragonFi website here for those who want to start to open up an account? So that's dragonfi.ph. That's dragon dot dragonfi.ph. So, John, tell us a bit more about the product. Yeah.
So as I mentioned, the pain point that we were trying to address really was the substandard UI UX of the trading platforms of the incumbent platforms. So I felt that if you check out the incumbent players, the technology that they were using was really turn of the century technology. It had it had an inability to scale. The UI UX was not at par with let's say the platforms that you see in developed countries. So we wanted to address those issues and provide the best in class UI UX experience to the investing public.
Got that. So let's try to concretize it a bit more. I hope you don't mind, John. Let's say, okay, this was the current painful or friction-filled experience, and this is the frictionless experience which you're getting here right now. How did people like the Mercado Mercada and the others explain just how much more seamless it had become after you guys came in?
Yeah, the notable comment of Mercado Mercada is the DragonFi platform is the best in the country, and it isn't even close. And to be honest, when we were developing the platform, we never benchmarked against the existing players locally. We actually benchmarked against the best of breed platforms internationally. I'm talking about the Charles Schwab, the TD Ameritrade, the Interactive Brokers of the world. And I actually feel that in a lot of respects, the DragonFi platform is actually even better than some of those US-based platforms that I mentioned.
Great. Let's talk about a bit more about putting that up in just a bit, no? But what I want to talk about here right now is the idea that, how did the actual, you're talking about you and your co-founders, right? And what many people, what's coming out of the news is that, wow, your co-founders are in Japsia of Double Dragon and, of course, Tony Tan of Jollibee. So I think what we want to hear right now is what is that entrepreneurial story that brought it about? So can we take a step back? I'm guessing that you approached them and pitched the idea to them, and that's why they like it. But then let's take a couple of steps back and tell me a bit more about where the co-founding came from. What is I understand the main pain point you were trying to address. Parang, wow, ang bagal dito. This is so backward for 2022, and we don't seem to be anywhere close. How come that gap wasn't being addressed? If there's smart people like you and people in the stock market who played over there and who dabble in stocks and states and use those advanced platforms, why wasn't anything done between 2022 and 2002, like you were saying?
That's it's hard for me. It's hard to me uh, to to put myself in the shoes of, let's say, the incumbent players, right? But I feel that there's really, from a technological point of view, locally, we really don't have the development talent necessary to hurdle the technological challenges that was faced by the financial market industry in the country. So that being said, I felt that there was this disposition wherein, pwede na, right? I mean, we all know that the local stock market only trades like 300,000 trades a day.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
it's very liquid. The incumbent players probably felt that it wasn't necessary to bring a best in class technology, which actually is very, very expensive to develop. But that mindset actually hindered greater adoption and engagement in the equity capital markets, which in turn hindered the development of the capital markets at large. And that was something that was really, I felt that was very important to address. So I graduated in 1999 from Ateneo, and that was, let's say, the tail end of the dot com boom,
Mhm.
and I was really
I
fascinated.
remember.
Yeah, I was really fascinated by the innovative companies that was sprouting up during that era.
Mhm.
But moreover, I was actually fascinated with the vibrancy of the capital markets in the US, wherein the capital markets fueled actually entrepreneurial risk taking and innovation. And that's something that I felt that the Philippines needed in order to truly democratize economic prosperity.
Got that.
So yeah,
Yeah. Keep on
so
going. Yeah, yeah. Keep on going, please. Yeah.
yeah, so I was actually in the U.S. when I was still in the U.S. when a Double Dragon went IPO, and I thought it was really a watershed moment. And I've always felt that InJap represented the latent potential of the equity capital market, because again, it was very U.S. like, in the sense that he was able to really tap the public capital markets to fund a new venture, and his innovative initiatives, right? So in that sense, that's why I sought out InJap when it came to DragonFi, because I really felt that going forward, InJap really represented, that entrepreneurial spirit, and the ability to tap the capital markets.
Yeah, I have to share. I learned also a lot from Injap. Because I'm in the food entrepreneurship space, and I remember, what his advice to me was before, when he was starting out the business. How he was able to, what's amazing about him is that it's his X-ray analysis of different things, so of different industries. And I remember he used to tell me his smile strategy when it came to Mang Inasal. He's saying, okay, if this was a McDonald's and this was a Jollibee, I'd put Mang Inasal over here. And eventually, he said, "I want to get to a point where I annoy Jollibee enough that they would buy me out," which eventually did happen. And very brilliant guy and very humble guy here at the same time. Imagine Provinciano coming to the city. He was barely in the city for about, he barely came to Manila, and he built Mang Inasal to what it is, and finally sold it to Jollibee. Now, I want to take a step back before approaching Injap to pitch this project. I want to go also to the sort of the genesis of how it came about. So you know that there was a backward nature to how they were doing the technology here. You sort of had the financial background. I'm not sure about the technical or the IT background. How did you put together a team that you could pitch to Injap this concept, and he would be positive. He wouldn't be lukewarm to your pitch.
Yep. So you're correct. As far as domain expertise in finance was concerned, so I got that covered. And my wife actually graduated, was able, was graduated from Cornell with a master's in computer science. and she became a developer for both Bank of America and Citibank in New York for the equities trading division. So together we had the domain expertise for both finance and technology. So that was really the pitch, and that was really I felt we were really strong together in that sense, i- in developing the overall business model.
Wow, so this is a husband-wife team that approached Injapsia for this one with nothing but guts and laway. Basically that's why I talk about it.
That's actually true. I mean, I think RJ, correct me if I'm wrong. You also did you also pursued your masters in real estate in the US, right?
That's right.
And one thing that you learn from pursuing a grad degree in the US is to learn how that the US culture is actually a very networking oriented culture.
Mhm.
So after that, with that experience, I really felt very comfortable approaching Injap and anybody for that matter. And so it wasn't really a stretch for me.
Well, really great story over there. Before I continue, I just want to greet the guys listening to us here right now. I've got Roy, Japan tour, all the way from Japan. Thanks so much for listening to us here right now. I've got several, disclaimer, I've done several great tours together with Roy in both Osaka, Tokyo, really great. And we also have got Nathan Apilado saying, hi, good evening, sir. RJ and guest John, thanks so much for coming here. A lot of great learnings coming on for both of them. Now, here's the interesting thing about John. Okay, John, you have a finance background, right? But what
Correct.
you are doing and still presently do is that you are actually, amazingly enough, in the makeup business, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's the correct name is Vice Cosmetics, is that right?
Yep. It's Vice Cosmetics.
Yeah.
So in my sense, so you're correct, right? So my core competency really is in finance and investing. But the thing is, like I elaborated earlier, I was really fascinated by the innovative companies that were sprouting out in the US, and I saw entrepreneurial ventures as another sort of like vehicle, another sort of like investment vehicle. So for me, you could be selling food, you could be selling cosmetics or skincare. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the unit economics behind it.
Got it. Got it. Spoken like a startup guy. Yeah. So, Abisara, how did you get into the makeup business? Because my guess is that okay, you did your masters in the U.S. and MBA in the University of Chicago, really great finance
Yes.
school. Then
Yep.
you came back over here, and from our conversation offline, your parents weren't exactly. I mean, not like the usual Filipinos who are very, from what I see, no, very entrepreneurial. Like from understand from Filipino Chinese businesses, the difference between Filipinos and Filipino Chinese is that pag Pinoy, they're gonna ask you, oh, what is your position now in the company, or have you achieved this level in the company? But for Phil Chai, it's more like, oh, what business have you put up? What business are you running now? So, was this makeup business something that was in the family, or did you do it yourself? And how did you come across this opportunity?
No. Actually, I'm the first member of my immediate family to become an entrepreneur.
Wow.
So I come from a non-entrepreneur family wherein business and finance weren't conversation staples in the dining table. So my entrepreneur fervor, as I mentioned, I was actually cultivated during my stint in City Securities as a U.S. markets equity trader. That was it. That was it for me. After that, I was hooked, and I started one business after the other. One better than the previous one. I had an iterative process by which I had a growth mindset wherein I learned from one business to the next, and each business incorporated the learnings of the previous one.
Yeah,
And
I want to
Vice
add, John,
Cosmetics.
I want to add just what you were saying. I hope you don't mind me interrupting you, but the idea is that I want to reiterate what he said. It's growth mindset, meaning that if you noticed if I was reading between the lines, that he opened up a lot of different businesses and he failed in those businesses, but the failure didn't mean that I'm not going to get any better. The growth mindset just means that the failure from the previous business, I'm going to use that as fuel or insight for me to improve myself in the next business that I do. Am I right, John?
Correct. That's absolutely correct. You only fail if you don't try again, right? It's
Exactly.
it's it's
Exactly.
it's an adage for a reason. And entrepreneurship really is a journey in discovery. Uh, you, you really need to learn how to deal with adversity. You really need to have that growth mindset, since it's really a marathon, not a sprint. You can't succeeding immediately in entrepreneurship is really an outlier
Yeah.
event, right?
I can
It's
I
not
can
something
truly
that's
commiserate with you. I can truly commiserate and empathize with absolutely everything that you're saying here right now. So, to my mind, is that you were ideating, iterating across many business ventures until you
correct.
finally got to the makeup industry. I mean, that's how
Yes.
I'm thinking, right? And how did you end up there? Because some people, they would think that I have to be passionate about a business to get into it. I'm looking at you, and I hope you don't mind me saying you don't look like somebody who's passionate about makeup when I look at you.
No, I'm just passionate about the margins. I'm passionate about the free cash flow generation. That's it.
Yeah.
so, uh, yeah. Makeup is something that my wife, had a predilection for coming back from the U.S. So she saw a lot of Korean cosmetics, and she started importing and distributing some of the Korean cosmetic brands. Then we were on vacation in LA, and I met with one of my Ateneo College classmates. His name is Maki Samako, and 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 he was also in the cosmetic industry in LA. So it's funny, two guys in the cosmetic industry, and we were talking, and this was this was the time when Kylie Cosmetic of the Kylie Jenner fame, right? Launch her line, and he was saying, why don't we copy the same business model but with a twist? So the twist there was to use Vice Ganda as the face of the cosmetic line. So we wanted Vice to stand for inclusivity and diversity, and we felt at that point in time the Philippines was ready. Uh, uh, it- so I read this book called "Eating the Big Fish" on how small companies eat the market share of the larger incumbents. And one of the things that I learned there was in one of the chapters, it talked about MAC Cosmetic. So MAC Cosmetic is the largest, one of the largest cosmetic brands in the world. And the way they broke through was in 1990. They used RuPaul, so a gay celebrity, to stand for inclusivity and diversity. So that was the play actually. So that was the analog for us,
Wow.
and it really worked. And I have to say, Vice Cosmetics is not my success alone. I had fantastic partners. Rhoda Campos Aldenese, so Maki Samako, his wife Ana Samako, Kathy was there, and Kate Valenzuela. So it was really a meeting of the minds. We brought to bear everything that we've learned from our entrepreneurial journey to that venture, and it was really a rousing success.
And up to now, you're still running Vice Cosmetics.
So now, Kathy, my wife, and Anna Samako, they're the prime movers of Vice Cosmetics. So
Did
I'm,
did
I'm
An-
really focused on DragonFi.
did Annie move back with her husband to the Philippines as a result of the growth of Vice?
You're saying that did Anna move back to the Philippines?
Yes, yes, with her
Yeah,
husband.
yes, she flies back and forth. She flies back and forth to the Philippines.
Great.
Yep.
I'm seeing
Yeah.
over here Trisha Tew saying over here very insightful discussion about Sir John and DragonFi. I very much agree with you, Trisha, that it's a very insightful discussion. As an aside, I just want to find out, John, because I'm looking at you and saying, were you the guy who approached Vice Ganda to tell him, I want you to be the one, I want you to be the face of the brand because you talk about inclusivity, or that was the power of collaboration and partnership with the different people that you brought into Vice Cosmetics?
Yeah, so again, that was a collective effort. Rhoda was there during the meeting, Maki was there during the meeting, Kathy was there. So we all approached Vice Ganda with the idea, and actually he immediately took to it. I thought, and it was one of those serendipitous moments. The Vice Cosmetics. I actually texted my partners the eve of the DragonFi launch, and I told them, when we launched Vice, there wasn't a single shred of doubt in all our minds that it was going to be a huge hit. And I was telling them, now I'm on the precipice of starting a new venture, and I'm I was having jitters, and I just recalled what transpired during that Vice Cosmetic during our Vice Cosmetic days, and it was really a very harmonious collaboration between partners who really truly enjoy working with each other.
Yeah. This is what I find interesting. That I was about to ask you actually now. Was there a point when you were doing Vice Cosmetics when you thought that, and like for any entrepreneur, there are moments of doubt because people only see when we succeed, because that's what we put press releases out about for the benefit of growing the business. But was there a
Yep.
point where you're going, oh, it's not going to work, or or you doubted whether or not doing Vice was going to be something successful?
No, not at all. So, as I mentioned, right, we brought to bear our collective experiences. So, one of the things that I mentioned about that growth mindset, right, having that iterative process throughout my entrepreneurial journey, I've learned that the things that you should value is free cash flow, increasing free cash flow yield, having that moat, having that ability to rise above the noise, having that scalability. And Vice checked all the boxes. One of the great strategies that we actually implemented in Vice is something that we learned from distributing the Korean cosmetic brands. So in 2013, 2014, our Korean principals, they actually required you to have a boutique. You had to have like a 50 square meter boutique, which would set you back around 4 to 5 million pesos, right? So that was really inimical to free cash flow generation. So with Vice Cosmetics, the the innovation there was we wanted to be able to distribute Vice nationwide, but use pop-up stores, use the Watsons and department store model, thereby shrinking the capex from that 5 million figure that I mentioned to as low as like 50,000, 60,000 to even 300,000. So the free cash flow generation actually, the Vice Cosmetics model allowed us to actually break even within 3 months, our entire paid up capital. For me, that was outstanding. I've never been part of any business venture that was at that scale, wherein we had 200 stores nationwide and we broke even in 3 months. That was a fantastic experience.
Well, thanks for sharing that insight with us. We have here Pau Ari saying, I could listen to Sir John for days. Such insightful resource. Let's pull that up so that you can see that Zeke, really great feedback coming from one of our listeners. And aside from that one, this guy Patrick is actually guessing what I wanted to ask next from John. He's saying, now that when you set, let's put this last question there, Zeke. Was there any learnings or mental models from your experience in Vice Cosmetics that you were able to carry over to DragonFi? So that's actually my next question. What did you pick up? Like you said, everything was iterative for you. So you picked up from your previously not so successful ventures, which ended up becoming Vice, and then from
Correct.
Vice, a venture which you eventually left in very capable hands. What did you pick up from there that you were able to use for DragonFi? Because at the onset, you wouldn't think there's a connection between the makeup industry and doing the stock market industry.
Yep. So, okay. What I learned from Vice, my biggest takeaway from Vice. So, I mentioned it checked all the boxes, right? Free cash flow, scalability. What was missing from Vice Cosmetics was having that moat. So, this was a discussion between Injap and myself, actually. So, when I first met Injap in 2017, I visited him in the Double Dragon office, and he mentioned to me the difference between Vice and, let's say, for example, Double Dragon. In Double Dragon, the buck stops at the value of the land, as opposed to Vice Cosmetics, which he felt we were just shelf space. Do you get what I mean, RJ? So we were just shelf space. So in that case, for DragonFi, I was actually looking for a moat, and in this case, the moat is a regulatory moat. So it is very, very, very difficult. to get a license, a trading license from the PSE, and both the PSE and the SEC, they have a mandate to shrink actually the number of trading participants in the PSE. So I already felt right there that acquiring the license eventually will have scarcity value. And so that's something that I learned from Vice Cosmetics that I applied to DragonFi. So again, DragonFi also checks all the boxes in terms of the ability to generate free cash flow. When I was really researching this business opportunity, I saw that uh, the typical brokerage, the free cash flow was 3 times the EPS, so the earnings per share. So those were the things that I saw that checked all the boxes previously. Plus, I learned from Vice Cosmetics how, through branding and through marketing, how to rise above the noise. And if you notice how we're branding DragonFi, if you see a launch video, it's really very different from how everyone else has marketed in this industry.
Got that. And actually, that's what I think also when you talk about the moat, and I'm thinking this from an entrepreneurial mindset, or how I would describe it. It's really putting up what I would call your secret sauce, or your unfair advantage. Because, like, for example, what is the unfair advantage? For me, I would think, for at least Vice, it would be that it's Vice Ganda. I mean,
Correct.
that's an advantage in itself because of the brand equity that he brings into the brand, and that's a sort of large moat enough, or a secret sauce that nobody can. I mean, you could have used anybody else, but he agreed. So, and what he carries with him provides your moat or your secret sauce. And if you look at it when it comes to DragonFi, your moat really is the regular. Not everybody can withstand the regulatory hurdles that you have to get approved to be able to do something like a DragonFi, and that provides your sort of moat from anybody else who tries to enter into the industry. If that's if my understanding is correct.
Yep, that's precisely correct. If you look at let's say, for example, the insurance industry, right? The insurance industry, it used to be that the initial paid up capital just to start an insurance company was 100 million, right? So there were a lot of participants, but over the years, as I mentioned about DragonFi, you saw the scarcity value in having that insurance license. Now the paid up capital, the required unimpaired paid up capital for the insurance industry is 1 billion. So I foresee such an occurrence with let's say the Philippine Stock Exchange as well. In probably, if you fast forward 10 15 years down the line, you probably would see something similar occur.
I see. Patrick, thanks you for the answer. And actually, his other question was a question I was going to reserve for later on, but I think I better ask it right here, right now. And you said earlier on, given that success is an outlier for first-time businessmen, any advice for first-time entrepreneurs such as myself? And I want to chime in with before I give John a chance to answer, if you don't mind, John. It's really that. Really expect that failure is built into your business model, I would say. And that's why the growth mindset is very important, because to be successful the first time around, that's amazing. I mean, the chances for that are truly amazing. But sometimes your first business model isn't your best business model. Sometimes you have to get your feet wet to understand what's going wrong and pivot from there. They often say that as an entrepreneur, it's not ready, aim, fire. It's ready, aim, ready, aim, fire, aim, fire, aim, fire, aim, fire. Because you keep on the targets keep on moving until you find what is the correct market that you have to go for, what's the correct technology that you have to do, what's the correct formula for marketing. I mean, that's basically how it's like for first timers to do business. I haven't met any first time successful businessman isn't showing you what's happening behind the curtains for the success that he has. There's so many mini failures that have happened in between. John,
Correct.
a lot to what I just shared.
No, I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, if you succeed the first time around, it might actually cover up all the flaws of your approach, right? Sometimes that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
So in my case, my philosophy after being an entrepreneur for the past, like, let's say 10 15 years now, my philosophy is that you have to respect the probabilities, right? We've all heard that, that you only have a 10% chance to succeed whenever you start a business, and whenever you go to market, you have to assume that the odds are stacked against you, and understanding that will encourage you to be more conscientious in terms of researching the business opportunity. Okay, how do I generate free cash flow? How much capital do I really need to see this business plan to fruition? What are the moats embedded in my business model, and such, right? So it's really obviously, once you're in the trenches, pivoting is inevitable, right? Pivoting
Yep,
is inevitable.
agree.
But I mean, having the foresight to look out for the pitfalls really will save you a lot of time and resources. So there are still things that are avoidable. There's still things that are avoidable. So having that high bar to making something actionable is actually very, very important.
Yeah. But and having said that, it's the same thing when you're doing the startup industry. What people don't realize is that when they are investing in an early stage startup, these venture capitalists, I mean, they know that you're probably not going to succeed the first time around. They know that you're going to find your way a bit more, but they're really
Correct.
investing in the founder and saying, okay, I believe in this founder, and I believe that if he doesn't find the solution the first time around, he's going to find a pivot or make discarte until he finds the correct solution. And that's how I understand many investments are made into early stage startups.
Yep, that's actually spot on, RJ. As a matter of fact, in Chicago, in our VCPE class, we were taught that, when the cost of capital that the VCs use to compute your value as a startup is actually 66%. That's incredible. You're talking about an IRR of 66% per annum. That shows you how uh, high the odds are stacked against you.
Exactly. There's another good question coming in from. I hope you don't mind. Let's take it here right now because it's great interaction here right now from Trisha to you. As a young professional, I only have limited capital. Hence, is it possible for me to succeed as an entrepreneur? Because your success story intrigues and inspires me. So let me tackle this first. I hope you don't mind because it's a great process. I think that you're listening to both myself and to John, both as entrepreneurs. But um, again, the idea is that as an entrepreneur, your job is to solve problems, right? I mean, it's a problem solving mindset, and that means that there is a problem that is in front of you that you're passionate about solving, and there are many ways to tackle that problem. And if you're looking at capital as the first way to tackle that problem, then for me that's an issue. Because, for example, I often tell people, if you look at Steve C, Steve C of Great Deals e-commerce.
Yep.
Steve C, before he entered into Great Deals e-commerce, he was selling insurance, right? Why? Because insurance didn't require a lot, like you said, it didn't require a lot of your own capital. Your capital there, again, guts and laway, right? Going out there, generating capital for him to be able to use eventually to grow the business. But then after getting that capital, he found great deals because eventually I don't know if you know the story, John, of how he did it. He was selling, he had a kiosk, he was selling things online, and then eventually one day when he was on I think it was Lazada, he found out that he tried to dispose all his things one day during a 9/9 sale. He saw, wow, everything disappeared. His stock disappeared. Sabi niya, time to invest because he saw that there was an
Oh
underserved
no.
opportunity coming out from there.
What
Yep,
happened?
I can hear you. No problem, John. Yeah, you're good. So, and that's how he came about. I
Okay.
mean, limited capital is sort of like a mindset in terms of how do you generate it. I mean, there's many ways to generate it. It can be sweat equity. It can be partnership. Like John, I'm sure that starting off DragonFi required you to, you had limited capital on your own, but you had great ideas and you've got a great partner to partner up with you. So you can succeed based on you're solving a problem that nobody else can solve, or there's an underserved opportunity that nobody else is seeing, and you can solve it because of your own skill set. But to generate capital, that's where you become creative. That's where the discard if an entrepreneur comes in. John, what's your own take?
Yes. Actually, you and I are of the same mind. Um, there was one constant behind the scenes in terms of my entrepreneurial journey, and that was really my investing endeavors in the U.S. equity markets. As I mentioned, I didn't have family money to lean on, and I really needed to generate capital at scale with velocity in order to fund my entrepreneurial ventures. And to Trisha's question, the journey is really, really very, very hard. It's sometimes it's really, again, it's a journey of discovery. uh, you really need to learn how to dig deep as an entrepreneur. It's like a lot of ups and downs, but you always have to put it within a long-term context. That's what I felt, not only in my entrepreneurial journey, but in my investing journey as well. When I was losing capital initially, in the equity capital markets, I always felt that it was a tuition fee that I needed to pay in order to learn. Fast forward to today, last year was actually my 20th straight year of profitability in the US equity markets. And it would not have been possible if I didn't have those early stumbles. Because those early stumbles, that's when you become more introspective, right? You become more circumspect and exhaustive in terms of your discipline and your approach towards having that growth mindset.
Got that. Really nice answers, John. Thanks so much for sharing all those. Now, I want to move on this time around to, okay, you had a great idea. You say for this one, you are blessed with a wife who is in IT, and you
Yes.
had the idea of what to do. And I say we're blessed because I also work together with my wife, and in our company, she is the she executes. I'm a good idea man. That's my job: ideas, networking, business dev, and strategy. But without her, I wouldn't be able to execute. Having said that, having praised our wives, moving on, how did you finally approach Injap? You said you approached him back in 2017, and eventually you made the pitch. What gave you the confidence to make the pitch, and what was exactly your pitch to Injap?
So okay, so I met Injab in 2017, and so from 2017 onwards, every now and then I would send him a text message. I would keep the relationship intact. Then around 2021, during the height of the pandemic, when I saw that the leading players in the industry were having technological struggles. People were having people were having difficulty logging into their accounts. The incumbent platforms were having slow connectivity and whatnot. That was actually the moment when I said, okay, enough is enough. So I created a business plan, and I approached. So 6 months later, when it was ready, I studied the industry. I approached Mr. Sia, and it was surprising. Mr. Sia actually concurred with my assessment on account of the fact that when he had his Merrimart IPO, the dominant incumbent player, uh, stopped accepting new accounts on account of the fact that they couldn't take the scale. And he said right away, "Yep, I know this is a pain point for the industry." Within 10 minutes of my presentation, he was already saying, "I already wanted to tell you, yes, I'm in." He saw the value. He saw the merits of the business model right away. But RJ, I forgot to mention that. So I applied for the University of Chicago for my MBA in 2006, and actually, in my goals essay, I mentioned that I was going to start a financial services firm in the future, and it just took time. And you asked me why the detour to the cosmetic arena, why the detour to retail. But the fact of the matter is, as I mentioned, the financial services industry, the regulatory barriers are very, very high.
Mhm.
And it takes a lot of credibility, uh, and a lot of backing, both financially and reputational capital, to
Mhm.
be able to surmount those hurdles. So it just took time. But to the University of Chicago admission committee, I would like to say that I held up my end of the bargain. I held up my end of the bargain, and I'm proud to say that.
Yeah, finally they can put the addendum right now to your diploma, saying okay, fulfilled based on his essay application. How did you bring in? How did so Injap told his business partner Tony Tan Katyong saying, okay, let's both put money into this new venture? How did that work?
Yep. So I approached Injap, and Injap immediately said, this venture is stronger with Tony. And I mean, that's an indisputable statement right there. I mean, you're talking about a person who's the prime mover of what is potentially going to be the fifth largest restaurant company in the world. And so, how do you say no to that?
Wow. So when he brought it in, so finally, okay, you guys had. I mean, this is. I mean, you've got the general idea. You were able to pitch. Great idea. You brought in the founder of Jollibee. You've got the founder of Mang Inasal. It's really great. What was next for you? I mean, because the big, I would presume that okay, they would provide the financial, I guess, engine for you to put this up, but there were still the regulatory hurdles that you had to put up, and of course, being able to trade in itself, there's a lot of I know because I was trying to also work some ideas around this one. You have to be able to buy a seat to be able to do this. How did it go about? How did you manage all this after that one?
So after they said yes, so we immediately looked for a target because the Philippine Stock Exchange, they no longer issue new licenses. So you actually have to acquire an existing business. So if you look at the competitive landscape, what's happening to the Philippine Stock Exchange? There's around 120 brokerages, but a lot of them are no longer financially viable. So a lot of brokerages actually want to sell, but it's extremely hard to sell on account of the fact that it's hard to get the acquisition approved by the PSE and the SEC. So once we found a target, it's just a matter of like submitting your application to the PSE and being interviewed by the PSE board, a membership committee. So we were able to surmount those. Long story short, we then applied for the SEC. The SEC application actually took 9 months, and so there. I mean, long story short, that's how there's no magic to it. It was just a very onerous journey.
Yeah. So finally, it's May 7. It's the eve of May 7. I'm just very curious. As a businessman, as an entrepreneur, putting this up, you did say you called your DragonFi, your vice co-founders. What was going through your mind that evening right before the trading platform was launched?
Butterflies for sure. I mean, butterflies for sure. I felt that it was another, RJ, right? Every time we go to market, initially the momentum carries you, but when you're on the verge of launching, all the doubts starts piling on, and that's what happened to me as well. I won't lie to you. I mean, but after launch and after seeing the receptivity of the market, I'm again encouraged. Again, those are the highs and lows, right? Those are the highs and lows. So I was nervous, but now I'm encouraged. I see that the receptivity of the market, and they validated essentially our business model, and I feel that we have the wind behind our back, to be honest.
And saying that, tell us a bit more about how it's been performed since you opened up in May 8th. How's been oftentimes you use the word traction, especially in the startup industry, but how's it been so far, the take-up of the DragonFi app?
So it's actually better than expected. So just to elaborate on the DragonFi app, right? You asked me earlier, and I failed to respond. So the business model was really to have that super investing app wherein we were going to give Filipinos access to the financial markets that matter to them. But in order to get to that point, we need the regulations to evolve to be able to, let's say, for example, provide the U.S. Access to the U.S. equity markets to Filipino investors, right? So, in that sense, when we launch with our first offering, which was a leading edge PSE trading platform, I always felt that since it didn't have the associated parts such as the U.S. equity markets and other asset classes, it it wasn't going to the traction wasn't going to be that fast to begin with. But actually, the reality is, I'm very surprised at the amount of
Wow.
enthusiasm that the clients have had towards DragonFi.
Wow. And I know that you did mention, and it's like, again, I'm gonna put a disclaimer there. It's a stretch goal over here to do about 100 billion in turnover in about 2 years, more or less. Well, how do you think that DragonFi is going to be growing over the next 2 years to be able to achieve this scale?
Yep. So, you know, something I want to tell our clients is this is just the first disruption. We're going to announce two new innovations over the coming months that I'm not ready to reveal on air, but we truly believe that we have the technological edge, and uh, our competitors, they'll be responding to our first initiative, but we're actually developing our second and third initiatives. So to your question, I believe that stretch goal is possible. I believe that stretch goal is possible on account of the fact that we will be innovating going forward. And I wish I can tell you the innovations that we are about to launch in the coming months, but I adhere to the principle of I believe that I believe that you lead with reality. You don't lead with the hype. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who keep on hyping stuff and in the end don't deliver. But in our case, we lead with reality. That's it. That's actually in keeping with when we said before that we were going to come out with the best in class trading platform for the PSE, and we achieved that. And just watch out for the next two innovations that we're going to come out in the coming months.
Got it. And actually, there's a question from Pau Ari, which is going to be actually similar to the question I wanted to ask. Let's just post the question there, Zeke. The question was, how do you plan on growing user base considering stock trading exposure isn't that big locally? Do you also consider that as a hurdle to scale? And the way that I would just rephrase it is that we have we have one of the lowest percentages of of uh, of of people of citizens invested in the stock market, even if you just compare us to the rest of Southeast Asia, right? We're very low in terms of our stock market investment. What exactly is a strategy for DragonFi to get people? And I'm guessing you're not just looking at first time. You're not looking at expert stock investors. You're looking at first time investors, even OFW investors, to look into our stock market. What's your strategy to get the first timers to come into the platform?
Okay, I have two responses to that question. First, the stats that you mentioned, 1.8% of working age population is trading, the Philippine Stock Exchange. The value turnover to market cap, value turnover to GDP, all, one third of global average. But it's been that way for so long
Yes.
that isn't there room for positive surprise? In my mind, there is. The Philippines has been growing. The Philippines actually pre-pandemic authored one of the fastest growth rates in the world at around 6.2%, and we're right back at those levels. And I believe that I've never seen a developed economy with an underdeveloped capital market. I've never seen that, right? So I believe there's really room for mean reversion in that sense. So I feel that there's really a lot of room for positive surprise in as far as the equity capital market goes, right? To your question regarding how we're going to generate interest in the market and engagement, I think it's a collective effort by all the industry participants, not just myself. I'm sure you guys heard about Gcash and Gcash coming out with G stocks, and I know for a fact that there are other players that are going to be coming into the fray with such an offering that can actually democratize access to the markets. So I believe that from the DragonFi standpoint, we're attacking that that problem, that quandary, from an education standpoint, and giving people the tools and analytics necessary to make more informed investment decisions. So I believe in concert that if you put all those factors together, there is room for positive surprise. But again, I spoke earlier about my philosophies about business, about respecting the odds, right? One thing I wasn't able to say was, whenever I look at a business endeavor, I actually don't look at the upside. I look at the downside risk, because the upside risk is something that you can't control, but the downside risk is something that's knowable. So in this case, I believe, as I mentioned, the stats that everybody has mentioned about participation rate, that has been there forever. So I know my downside risk, but there's really a lot of room for positive surprise.
Got that. I thought that you'd also be getting Vice Ganda to be your brand ambassador for DragonFi. But,
You know,
yeah.
I prefer the Royal True Orange guy. I think the Royal True Orange guy, will generate more buzz.
I think so too. My problem is that the millennials and Gen Zs have no clue the Royal True Orange model is. So but I'm just asking if you don't mind, because I'm a marketing guy, I'm a brand guy. How do you plan to go about marketing DragonFi? I understand as a whole, a lot of players need to grow it, but then in particular, what's the strategy also to use to grow DragonFi?
Yep. So we have three pillars. Yeah. So this is something that we will always speak about internally. We're going to be the most technologically sophisticated. We're going to be the most disruptive in terms of branding, and lastly, the one that ties the two together, and one that is able to start that virtuous cycle, is innovation. So one thing that I've learned, I mentioned the book Eating the Big Fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be the player that's driving the conversation, and the way you drive the conversation is by having standing on the bedrock and having a lot of innovation in your pipeline and executing. The more you innovate, the more people take notice. And I feel like, just looking at our first offering, right, it's something that people weren't prepared for. As a matter of fact, we're getting feedback that people are having a hard time. Actually, some people are having a hard time using the app, because they were so used to the mediocrity that was being offered, over the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's but it's clearly, it has gotten people excited. Clearly, we've gotten mind share. And so I believe that our future pipeline of innovation is going to be even more groundbreaking.
Got that. And having talked about innovation, I just want to ask, just because it was great, because the first innovation basically is just taking a look at what the market's doing here right now and saying, what can I do differently? That's the first innovation. That was from the backwardness of what we're doing. It's the advanced technology. And it is a bigger question. How does innovation how do you keep on innovating in the company? What particular area do you look at to continue innovation? Because now it's going to be what I would call self-generated. I mean, it's basically yourself, your wife, who's the IT. I mean, how I see it's you and your wife is IT. How do you plan on keeping the innovative edge, given that you've woken up? Many of your competitors are going, okay, right now they're doing something. We're gonna have to compete, so they're gonna be spending a bit more money to compete with you. And how do you keep that? How will you keep that innovative edge?
Yeah. So two things. Always look externally, right? So the reason we were able to actually disrupt the industry is on account of the fact that Kathy and I, our domain expertise, it was actually leveraged towards a more developed financial market. So seeing that, we were able to bring in a lot of those innovative features to the local investing industry. But secondly, it's about listening to your customers. You know, RJ, I don't know if you guys use Zendesk in any of your businesses. So we have a customer service app known as Zendesk, which funnels all the messages to one app, whether it's from Twitter, from Facebook, email, everything is funneled. And every night I'm actually answering a lot of the customer queries because it
Wow.
helps me. It gives me a pulse of what the consumer wants. And over the past 2 weeks, we launched in May 8th, and we've already actually changed a lot of our workflow to be in sync with what the consumers wanted. Because initially we were following the workflow of the American brokerages, and it seems that Filipinos are very used to the Gcash, the Maya workflow, and we had to adopt some of those. And so so innovating is not is again looking externally, but also leveraging customer feedback.
Got that. That must make for some great bedroom reading, huh? Nighttime reading, huh?
Yeah.
All the desk comments. You know, it just occurred to me because I do work with my wife. I mean, like you put the app together, and I'm guessing that she's helping you also manage DragonFi. How is it like, and how do you make sure to maintain a semblance of sanity? I mean, working with your spouse is great, but it's also a challenge, and I think you understand what I mean. How do you
Yep.
guys make sure that there's a certain balance between your professional and personal life over here?
Right now, there's zero sanity. Uh, we're very very tired. Every day, I'm just everywhere. To be honest, nowadays, the meetings keep piling up. My calendar on my email keeps piling up, and it's exhilarating, but it's tiring. To be honest, coming to this interview, I was already very very tired. But I wanted to meet the royal true orange guy, and
Yeah, but I do hope, I mean, I guess this is it's good that your wife also experiences the entrepreneurial life, because we understand. I mean, there's certain things that we
yes,
understand both as entrepreneurs, that this is something that you really have to go through, really. And it's nice to have a spouse who understands what you're going through, because she's with you in the process.
correct. Actually, to be honest, I mentioned that I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family, but my wife did. So in her case, this is like breathing for her, right? It's second nature. It's second nature. For me, I had to grow into this. So yeah, but I 100% agree. If you and your spouse are in sync, if you have shared values, it makes for a happier family life. But right now, as I mentioned, there's zero sanity.
Yeah, exactly. I get exactly where you're coming from. It's been a really great talk so far. I can't believe we've been talking for almost an hour over here, John.
Oh,
And I think we'll start wrapping up the discussion. But as I do know, just a couple of things. One more is this one. I know we talked about earlier on, you know, entrepreneurial opportunities. From your vantage point, do you see any opportunities? It doesn't have to be in the stock market, but in general, are you seeing any opportunities, particularly in the Philippines, given the demographics, given the size of the economy right now, given specific industries, or even in the stock market industry? Where can entrepreneurs still play a part in?
yep. I actually have one. Uh, so one of my best investments through the years has been Nvidia, right? So Nvidia has become like the brains of generative AI, and generative AI is actually going to shake up a lot of what we do in the Philippines, especially if you consider that 11 to 12% of our GDP is in BPO. And I feel that is at risk, right? 11% to 12% of the GDP is at risk on account of generative AI. Uh, Having said that, the Philippines really needs to migrate up the value chain. I feel a business venture that could potentially work would be, let's say, a massively online learning experience to help people transition from, let's say, being a customer sales representative to a developer. And that's now possible. if you listen to the interview of Jensen Huang in the Nvidia in last quarter's Nvidia earnings call, he said that essentially generative AI was the iPhone moment of AI, in the sense that it was able to democratize that the development, the developer skill set. uh, Generative AI is already in let's say in such apps like the GitHub Copilot, wherein it teaches you how to code efficiently. So it's now within reach of even non-techie people, and I feel in this case it's actually an existential threat, right? To a BPO industry that is very reliant on something that is actually easily commoditized.
Got that. Got that. But just into my mind, as an entrepreneur or entrepreneur mindset, it just means that, like you said, in other words, finding new opportunities, moving up in the value chain, and that's really
Yep.
what's key here right now. And we just have to. It's really keeping your ear on the ground and see, okay, what's next for me? What's the next opportunity possible that you have to move to, and that's where the entrepreneurial Descartes comes into play.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, it's never a dull moment for entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And having said that, you said you've been after grad school, you've been playing in different industries. You've been finance, you've been makeup. Now you're doing stock market. Um, if you were to share some of the things that you've learned over the years that might have accelerated things for you, or been a management
Yep.
hack that you want to share with aspiring entrepreneurs here, what would you like to share with them, John?
Absolutely. So so much focus is put on profitability. So every time you go to market, there's really a high barrier to profitability. But something that I didn't understand as a neophyte entrepreneur 15 years ago was that there's even a higher barrier to free cash flow generation. Even in business school, when they teach when they teach free cash flow computation in corporate finance, they always put it within the context of valuation. But in reality, let's say, when I was a neophyte entrepreneur, I always wondered why. Okay, from an income statement point of view, I should be making money, but where's the cash? It's tied up in inventory. It's tied up in capital expenditures, right? So things of that nature. So if I were to advise an aspiring entrepreneur, focus on the free cash flow, because I remember in my new venture strategy class in University of Chicago, on the first day, our professor mentioned, do you know what I call entrepreneurs? I call entrepreneurs downwardly mobile. They start off with a stable salary to being the last person to get paid, and that's so true. That's absolutely a reality, right? We've all experienced that. We've all experienced the struggle of not being able to pay ourselves. We've
Yes,
all experienced
very
the
much.
struggle of the business not being able to give out dividends. So focus on free cash flow. Don't focus on net income. Net income is a made up number. It's a fictional number.
Yeah. I think that you'll have to just explain a bit more some case studies of what does free cash flow mean.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So free cash flow is the amount of cash at a particular point in time that the business has. So the problem with net income, right? There's what you call accrual accounting and cash accounting. Uh, I'm trying to figure out how to proceed within the context of this podcast. But so free cash flow, to arrive at free cash flow, you actually take out non-cash elements that contribute to the final absolute value of net income. For example, depreciation. Depreciation is a non-cash line item, right?
Mhm.
So essentially, you have to add that back to net income. but in reality, you add that back to um, so um,
And again, exactly
I'm
what you mean. It
struggling.
means that basically that's how much cash you actually have on hand that you can
Yes,
use.
yes, exactly. Because there's a lot of non-cash items that go into net income that actually you can't use to pay yourself nor give out dividends. So as I said, net income is a fictional number that people that you can play games around with.
And again, I'd like to thank everybody because you got a great impromptu personal finance and corporate finance lesson coming from John Lim. John, thanks so much. It's been really great speaking with you. And I think gauging from the participation of the people here in the comment box, they really appreciate what you had to say. So for those of you here right now who want to try and open up a DragonFi account, Z, can we put back again on screen? That's DragonFi, DRAGON dot, Dragon, DRAGONFI dot PH. And John, just since you're the ultimate ambassador for DragonFi, how low is it to deposit in DragonFi to start off your account?
So tomorrow actually we'll be announcing a promo wherein you can open an account for as little as 25,000, because initially we set the bar at 50,000, and if you go below the 50,000 mark there's a platform fee, but now it's 25,000, just to encourage more people to sign up.
And again, thanks so much, John, and to the rest of the DragonFi team for joining us. I really appreciate the feedback. Also, thanks so much for giving us a lot of feedback on Vice. It's been a really great session. Unfortunately, we have to end over here. Again, to everybody, thank you so much for joining us. John Lim of DragonFi here in the RJ Ledesa podcast. We'll see you guys in the next podcast. Thanks so much, everybody. John, hang
Thanks,
around.
RJ. Bye. Thank you. Thanks for having us.